and she was in this beautiful form as if she still had a physical body, but it was perfect, and it was filled with glory and light and love that filled the room for me. And it was as if somebody, it was like watching the TV with the sound turned off. Everything got quiet in the room, and time started to slow down. And she communicated how grateful she was for the care that Jeff was receiving. And I had a download, a flood of knowledge like has been described. I knew exactly who she was, though I'd never met her. I walked over and I looked down at Jeff on the gurney. I knew he'd live. I knew he was going to lose his leg. I put my hand on his leg, or I think I checked the pulse in his foot, and either in my mind or out loud I said, oh, he's going to lose the leg. I knew. And as I looked down at Jeff, I could still see Tamara standing in the air behind me, because I could see in all directions at the same time. And there was just this profound peace, this reordering of all priorities, this understanding about what's important and why you're there and who everybody is, including yourself, and where you fit in the grand scheme of things. And we did what we did for Jeff. We sent him off to the OR or the ICU, I don't remember which. And I pulled off my shoe covers and my gown and went back out and finished my shift in the department and went home and never expected to see him again.
How long was it before you recounted the story to him?
About a month later, this same nurse came and started tugging on my arm again. I said, "Go away. I don't like it when you pull on my arm." She said, "We have to go tell Jeff what happened." I said, "No, we don't," because she had the same experience. The nurse did. And she said, "Yeah, we need to go tell him." I said, "Listen, if you want to go tell a perfect stranger about your profoundly personal experience, be my guest, but I don't feel obligated to do that." But being a good nurse that she was, she dragged me to Jeff's hospital room, kicking and screaming. And I stood off in the corner, mostly quiet, while she explained to Jeff what we had experienced. And I kind of nodded. And later Jeff told me, he said, "Yeah, you just kind of stood in the corner and nodded mostly. You didn't say much," which I thought, yeah, that sounds like me. And when she shared the experience, Jeff got emotional. And that's when he opened up and shared his experience that he'd had at the scene of the accident. We shared those experiences with each other that day.
See, and I think it's serendipitous. There is no accident. There are no accidents.
There's no
right?
accidents. I mean, in the state I was in, and I was still very sick. In fact, I went back into ICU after they had visited me with pulmonary emboli and blood clots and everything else, but I didn't know who they were when they came in the room. I was trying to place them. I'm like, I don't know these people. And when they began to speak, of course, they didn't know me from Adam really either. They didn't know I'd made a deal. They didn't know that I had said, "Yeah, I'll come back." And when I said to the doc, "What did Tamara communicate to you?" And he said, "She simply shared her gratitude for what we were doing to save your life." That's when the tear, I'm like, well, of course she would. We made a deal. I promised I would live. I'd raise our boy. And I mean, all the pieces began to fit. The other thing, too, is I kept looking. The nurse was so kind and so gracious to share it. And I thought, wow, these are clinicians. I kept looking at the doc, and when I shared what had happened to me, and I'm like, I feel safe, because if he saw or had this experience, if I'm crazy, he'll take me to the psych ward and get me the help I deserve. But it was so real. I knew I wasn't crazy, but suddenly there was this external, not that I needed validation, but here was two clinicians that were perfectly sound and capable, and they weren't losing oxygen to the brain when all this was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, Jeff and I became friends, you know, I mean, probably in that moment.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, while we're sharing these profound experiences with one another, I had this clarity and foreknowledge that was forming in my consciousness as we're talking, that this day isn't really about this day. This day is to connect you to the next decades of your life, because that's what's more important going forward. And it's now been 27 years, and we've been good friends ever since, and we've done a lot of speaking and sharing, and I think what we're doing now still matters.
And your message, Jeff, that you received from Tamara was multifaceted. You had to go back, and you had to take care of Spencer, and she's fine, and Griffin's fine.
Yeah.
But she also told you something about unconditional love, didn't she?
Yeah. Yeah, that was the lesson. And life has played out. You don't have a near-death experience and then everything's okay. I mean, no one can pretend that, I had this horrible accident and I had this near-death experience and then I lived happily ever after. No, you go through life and things happen, and life happens. And I look back now even to over 2 decades ago, and for her to say, you will learn unconditional love. And even now, it's like, well, gosh, maybe the unconditional love is for myself. I'm really good at loving my neighbor and reaching out and, I love everybody.
It is.
But yeah, now it's like, oh wow, now it's about me loving myself, and what a journey. Now, from that perspective, maybe 27 years just collapsed down, and it's a twinkling of an eye. But in my perspective, as I've grown gray and now I'm going through life, I'm still learning. I'm still learning, but we all have these guardian angels, these angelic forms, whoever that is, the ancestors, maybe the bald guy on the raft, I don't know.
I'll tell you who he was in a little bit.
Oh, okay. Maybe the Buddha, I don't know.
It is Buddha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
me. I'm the bald guy on your left.
yeah, I mean, there's these masters that come in.
I was the
Buddha,
fish.
The Christ, the Krishna, but in the end, I think we're all masters.
We are.
And we're having our journey. But boy, that self-love for me, the unconditional love for self. I mean, at the end of the day, my story's a love story, but it's a redemption story. It's a redemption story of, wow, okay.
And it's ongoing.
Can I forgive myself? And is it ongoing?
Yeah, I think that's an important point to make, that it's ongoing, because Jeff and I lived nearby each other for many years, and then he moved down here to Arizona. And I remember having this feeling, we're not going to see each other much. Our friendship might not survive living in separate states. And his wife, Tamara, came to me years after the accident, and she said, don't let anything come between your friendship with Jeff.
Wow. And this is why,
That's right.
Learning to listen and having practitioners and professionals that understand the near-death experience and what a gift it is for you and the bridge, and that everything happens for a reason. You were brought to him. It was a contract, not just an agreement for you to come back, but also your soul made a commitment in that moment too, outside of your human. And so we get the gift of being able to share this knowledge with the world, that there is purpose to everything. There's love. There's no judgment. That we are loved as we are. And it's all of this and coming together in this moment. That's it.
And if I could say anything to Barb's neurosurgeon, I wouldn't say you have to believe in near-death experiences, you have to believe in religion, you have to believe in God. You don't have to believe any of that.
Nope.
Just be respectful enough and familiar enough with the literature to say what you experienced is much more common than most people appreciate, and I'll connect you with someone who can help you process it.
Exactly.
You don't have to believe it, you don't have to accept it.
Just be open, like you
Yeah.
said.
And
tell
it's
our
real
story.
for us. It's more real than any human experience.
Yes.
And so even if you yourself don't believe it, right? Allow the experience to be for them. Because for us, it changes our lives. But the moment that we come out or through that, we are changed and our life will never be the same. And every decision we make in this life comes back to that.
Well, and the grandiosity of all of your experiences dwarfs what the rest of us who haven't had that experience, but be able to extol that kind of information to us, to give us kind of a primer to go forward. That's kind of really, I think, the crux of why we're doing this, because we can take the insights, we can glean your insights, we can make them practical, and then we can apply them in our daily lives. Will we be successful all the time? No, of course not. But that's the vagaries of the human experience. But it's also the beauty of the human experience. It depends on how you pay attention to it, just like Jeff said. Don't dismiss it out of hand. Just be open and refer them to someone who can give them the opportunity to really discern and sit and talk about their experiences.